Watch a full-grown adult giraffe at a full gallop, and you're seeing a massive physical anomaly in motion. They can tower up to 19 feet above the savanna. But despite this massive size difference, their neck is built from the exact same architectural blueprint as ours. A giraffe has exactly 7 neck bones, just like a human. The difference is purely in the scale. Each of those 7 cervical vertebrae can grow up to 12 inches long. Stacked together, they form a 6-foot, 600-pound column, and that creates a physics problem. Pushing a heavy fluid like blood straight up a 6-foot vertical pipe against the continuous downward pull of gravity requires an immense amount of internal force. Just to deliver enough oxygen up to the brain, a giraffe has to generate a staggering blood pressure of 220/180 at the heart. If a human circulatory system experienced 220/180, the results would be catastrophic. The pressure would induce immediate heart failure, destroy the kidneys, and force fluid to pool massively in the lower legs. By standard mammalian biology, a giraffe should not survive its own proportions. Staying alive requires hacking that basic blueprint with a series of highly specialized anatomical workarounds. Generating 220/180 blood pressure requires immense mechanical power. To achieve this, a giraffe develops a hypermuscular, drastically thickened left ventricle. In a typical mammal, this is where the system breaks down. When our heart muscle thickens to this extreme, the tissue stiffens. It's a lethal condition called fibrosis, and it physically stops the heart from filling and pumping properly. But the giraffe carries a specific genetic patch. Researchers have identified 5 distinct mutations in their DNA directly related to fibrosis. These mutations allow their heart muscle to grow incredibly thick and powerful without ever losing its vital elasticity. Their electrical rhythm is completely altered. The cardiac system shifts the heartbeat's timing, extending the phase where the ventricle fills. Because it spends more time filling, it pumps a drastically higher volume of blood per stroke, sustaining oxygen supply during extreme exertion. The giraffe's heart operates less like a standard organ and more like a heavy-duty industrial pump, specifically engineered to run continuously at lethal pressures. While the heart forces blood up to the brain, the lower half of the giraffe faces the opposite physics problem. Gravity inevitably pulls that high-pressure blood downward with crushing force. This intense downward hydrostatic pressure threatens to force water straight out of the blood vessels and into the surrounding tissue, which would cause the legs to swell uncontrollably. To survive this, giraffes wear their own biological support stockings. Their lower legs are wrapped tightly in an extremely dense web of connective tissue. This tight wrapping physically compresses the leg tissues from the outside. It directly resists the outward pressure of the blood, trapping the fluid inside the vessels and preventing leakage. They also have a secondary pressure relief system built in. Thick-walled arteries near their knees act as physical flow restrictors. Much like kinking a garden hose, this drops the blood pressure before it can reach the lower hose. The lower half of a giraffe functions as a pressurized anti-gravity suit, forcefully squeezing fluid back up toward the heart. Despite crushing pressure, the giraffe maintains a massive range of motion. Bending a rigid 6-foot structure this extremely would normally break the spine. They avoid this through large intervertebral spaces and using a modified chest vertebra as a stabilizing fulcrum to pivot on. But the ultimate physical stress test for this biological engineering happens every time the animal takes a drink. Lowering the head adds the weight of gravity to that already extreme 220/180 blood pressure. The resulting surge of downward force should instantly cause a fatal brain hemorrhage. To prevent this, the giraffe relies on a massive hydraulic buffer system. As the head drops, over 1 liter of blood is shunted into their enormous jugular veins, safely storing the fluid and temporarily dropping the pressure hitting the brain. Then comes the recovery phase. When the giraffe abruptly raises its head, all that stored blood rushes straight back down to the heart. The heart responds with a vigorous, high-pressure stroke, sending blood right back up to the brain so the animal doesn't faint. The giraffe's neck functions as a highly active, self-regulating hydraulic management system, constantly balancing lethal pressures in real time. What evolutionary pressure pushed an animal to develop such an extreme anatomy? Biologists point to behavioral theories, like reaching for high canopy foliage, or males violently swinging their heavy heads to establish dominance in combat. But behaviors like fighting or high canopy browsing are impossible without the internal plumbing to support them. Elongating the neck required the simultaneous, synchronized mutation of around 70 distinct genes to upgrade the cardiovascular system and the skeleton at the exact same time. We can see just how targeted this genetic divergence was by looking at the giraffe's closest living relative, the okapi, which retained completely standard mammalian neck proportions. The giraffe is an extreme of biological engineering. Nature took an everyday 7-bone mammalian blueprint and stretched it to the absolute physical limits of life on Earth.